A Venetian merchant, Antonio, takes a pleasant walk with his friends Salarino and Salanio. He tells them that he's been feeling down. They suggest to him that he must be worried about his ships, which are currently far away at sea. For what it's worth, he assures them that at least it's nothing romantic that has got him down. The friends conclude that Antonio is a glum chap, and glum chaps are inclined to be glum. Bassanio, Lorenzo, and Graziano arrive. They all exchange pleasantries, and then Salarino and Salanio leave. Graziano chides Antonio for being too solemn, and assures the party that he is committed to always play the fool, though the friends suggest that sometimes he is too much the fool. Lorenzo and Gratiano depart, leaving Bassanio and Antonio alone. Antonio asks about a lady who Bassanio was planning to get to court. Bassanio rambles on about his plans and motives, but drops hints about being out of pocket and that this holds him back. Antonio snaps at him to get to the point, and Bassanio confesses that he loves Portia, a well-to-do woman who lives in Belmont. She is currently being courted by the rich and powerful, and Bassanio feels that he lacks the finances to compete with them. Antonio would love to help his friend, but all his capital is tied to his ships, which are currently all at sea. But he is prepared to help Bassanio by being surety for a loan. He promises his friend that they will get Bassanio to Belmont and to Portia. Meanwhile, in Belmont, Portia and her friend Nerissa are discussing the terms of her father's will, which determine how she is going to marry. A suitor must choose from 3 chests, 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 lead. One of these contains her portrait, and Portia will marry this person. If a suitor takes up the challenge and chooses the wrong chest, his end of the deal is that he now swears that he will never marry and will live as a bachelor for the rest of his life. Nerissa tries to console her friend by suggesting that Portia's father may have known that the person who chooses correctly would naturally be the one that Portia would prefer. They reminisce over some of their visitors. They have had barons and princes and all sorts of nobles come to them. So far, nobody has decided to try their luck, weighing risk versus reward, and Portia doesn't think too much of any of them anyway. She did like one chap, though, a Venetian named Bassanio. Back in Venice, Bassanio meets with Shylock, a Jewish moneylender, looking for a loan of 3,000 ducats, and Antonio will be his surety. Shylock has reservations. He knows that Antonio's fortune is currently tied up on ships headed and returning from faraway places. This is a risky transaction. Bassanio invites Shylock to dinner, an invitation which Shylock turns down. He may do business with Christians, but he doesn't eat with them. Antonio arrives, adding a whole new layer of unpleasantness to this conversation. Shylock hates Antonio. Firstly, because he's a Christian. Secondly, because Antonio lends money at 0 interest. Thirdly, because Antonio publicly condemns Shylock for the latter's excessive interest rates. And later we'll find out that Antonio sometimes bails out Shylock's debtors, meaning Shylock has to forfeit his collateral. Antonio says that despite his principle of neither lending nor borrowing with interest, he will make an exception here because Bassanio is a man in need. While he's busy calculating the terms, Shylock digresses by telling him the old biblical story of Jacob who increased his herd of sheep, accruing interest. With contempt in the air, Antonio and Shylock bicker about whether this will be a friendly contract or not. Antonio says not at all, but Shylock would like to be friends, and as a gesture he sets the terms at 3 months with no interest. However, for a bit of sport, Should Antonio default on the loan, Shylock may physically remove a pound of flesh. The pound of flesh would be worthless to him, and this is meant to show that Shylock has good intentions. Antonio is not concerned about defaulting, and Bassanio would not like these terms to be set. Shylock insists it's not about the money, and so the contract is agreed. In Belmont, the Prince of Morocco enters to woo Portia, pleading with her to not count his different skin color as an issue and to treat him as any suitor. Portia assures him the color of his skin is no issue and warns him again of the terms of the will. He is undeterred and will make his hazardous choice after they dine together. In Venice, Launcelot, yes, Launcelot, a servant of Shylock, is debating a career change. This is no small decision, as Launcelot's father had been in Shylock's service as well. After a bit of fun with his blind father, Launcelot bumps into Bassanio, who is in a very good mood. Launcelot suggests taking employment with Bassanio, who accepts immediately. They agree terms, and Launcelot is ordered a new uniform immediately. Gratiano arrives, insisting that he come to Belmont as well. While Bassanio has some reservations, he agrees to it. They set off for Bassanio's house and a party to celebrate good times. At Shylock's house, Launcelot has returned, presumably to pack his bags, and we meet Jessica, the daughter of Shylock. She is sad to see Launcelot go. Shylock's house is pretty miserable as it is, and Launcelot has been the only good cheer around. She gives a letter to Launcelot to pass on to Lorenzo. Lorenzo will be at Bassanio's party. Jessica intends to elope with Lorenzo and then to become a Christian. Gratiano, Lorenzo, Salarino, and Solano chat about the party tonight. Launcelot passes by on his way to take an invite to the party to Shylock. Awkward. He gives Jessica's letter to Lorenzo, who tells him to assure Jessica that he will not fail her. He tells the chaps that Jessica will be disguising as a page at tonight's party. Over at Shylock's house, he is preparing to go to the party after all. He bumps into Launcelot and tells the servant that life is not going to be as good going at Bassanio as it was with Shylock. He laments having to witness the extravagances of the party and has a feeling that something bad is going to happen. He warns Jessica to keep the sights and sounds of it from his house. He cautions Jessica when he sees Launcelot trying to have a quiet word with her. Jessica is now alone and ends the scene with her prophetic line, "I have a father, and you a daughter lost." Outside Shylock's house, masked Gratiano and Salarino, ready for the party, are waiting for a late Lorenzo who rushes in full of apologies. Jessica appears on a balcony, dressed as a boy and a bit embarrassed about that. She tosses down some money. Lorenzo convinces her that she will be his torchbearer tonight. While she has concerns about being in the spotlight and being discovered there, they all agree that this is how things will be done. Jessica calls that she'll be right down. She just needs to lock up, as she promised her father she would, and get a little bit more money. All but Graziano leave. There he is met by Bassanio, who tells him that the party is off because the winds have changed and they must set sail immediately. In Belmont, the Prince of Morocco looks at the three boxes, trying to read something into the inscriptions on them. He reads the inscription on the lead box. "Who chooseth me must give and hazard all he hath." The prince reasons that lead is too cheap a material to house a portrait of the fair Portia. So he turns to the silver. "Who chooseth me shall get as much as he deserves." Does he deserve Portia? Well, yes. Would her father use a box 10 times less valuable than the gold one? No. The gold. Who chooseth me shall gain what many men desire. It must be this one. So he opens it, and in it is a skull. There is a note in its empty eye socket. All that glistens is not gold. Gilded tombs do worms enfold. The prince exits. Back in Venice, when Shylock returned home from the party and found his daughter and money gone, he was livid. He appealed to the Duke of Venice to have Bassiano's ship searched. This had been impossible, as the ship had already left. Antonio had vouched that Shylock wouldn't find his daughter there anyway, and Shylock had wandered the streets lamenting his lost daughter and money, all the while being followed by mocking children. Saliano and Solano had been discussing all this, and their further concern that Shylock would try to exact some revenge on Antonio for all this. Furthermore, there were dark rumours circulating that an Italian merchant ship had sunk in the English Channel, and they hoped it was not one of Antonio's. They set off to see Antonio, presuming then that he will need cheering up. In Belmont, the Prince of Aragon has taken up the challenge. He looks at the boxes and their inscriptions. He reflects on the lead just as the Moroccan did. He rejects the gold because it says what many men desire, and he isn't one of the multitudes. So it must be the silver one. Inside is the portrait of a fool. Exit Aragon. One of Portia's servants announces that an ambassador of another suitor has arrived, a Venetian, and he has many gifts. Portia is not optimistic, and Nerissa goes down to greet the party, hoping that this is Bassiano. On the Rialto Bridge in Venice, the friends are discussing the rumor of the Italian ship lost in the Channel. It seems that it may well have been Antonio's. Shylock appears and lashes out at them about Jessica. They all bicker, and then Shylock reminds them that their friend Antonio must look to his bond. Has he heard about the shipwreck? They reason with Shylock. Surely he won't take a pound of flesh.
He hath disgraced me, and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses,
mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason?
But you have not a Jew eyes, have not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is.
If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? If you wrong us, shall we not revenge?
If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Why? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be? By Christian example. Why?
revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
The friends leave to find Antonio. Shylock has a friend, Tubal. Tubal has tracked Jessica to Genoa, but he can't find her. Shylock, however, is now more worried about his lost money and diamonds than about the daughter, who he feels might as well be dead. Tubal has more news. Another of Antonio's ships is lost, this time off the North African coast. Shylock is delighted. and tells Tubal to pay the police sergeant already to arrest Antonio when the bond is forfeit. Bassiano has arrived in Belmont and is keen to get busy choosing a box. Portia is nervous that he will also choose the wrong one, and so she tries to stall. He will not be dissuaded though, and calls for music to add mood to the scene. He rejects the gold box because the inscription suggests that he should be wary of external appearances. He rejects silver as a common thing. Portia, now hiding her giddiness, watches him open the lead box. He finds her portrait with a note. Turn you where your lady is, and claim her with a loving kiss. He obliges and receives a ring from Portia, which she warns him he must never, ever part with. Not to steal any thunder, Nerissa and Gratiano announce that they have fallen in love as well, and would like to hitch on to the main wedding. All is agreed. Saliero arrives with Jessica and Lorenzo, whom he met on the way. He carries a letter for Bassiano from Antonio. On reading it, Bassiano turns pale. It tells of Antonio's plight, that he has lost everything, that Shylock is pressing his bond, that Bassiano's debt to Antonio is cancelled, and that all Antonio would like is to see his friend before he dies. Portia insists that Bassiano go to Antonio, and that he has whatever of her fortune he needs to save his friend. Antonio has been allowed out of prison and goes to negotiate with Shylock. The latter will have none of it. He feels that Antonio has always treated him badly, and he will not be played for a fool now. He says repeatedly, "I'll have my bond." Antonio knows the game is up. He has often saved Shylock's debtors from forfeiting loans, costing Shylock the collateral, and adding a very personal edge to this issue. Furthermore, Venice, being the centre of trade in the Mediterranean world, must take these issues seriously. It is likely the Duke will find for Shylock. All Antonio would like now is to see his friend Bassiano. In Belmont, Portia is praised by Lorenzo for so clearly grasping the friendship between Antonio and Bassiano. She asks Lorenzo and Jessica to manage her household, while herself and Nerissa go to a monastery to wait for their husbands to return. But Portia has trickery in mind. She sends a letter to a cousin of hers, a lawyer in Padua, asking for notes and lawyer's garb. Her and Nerissa will disguise as men and follow Bassiano and Gratiano to Venice. She will be at his side whether he knows it or not. Meanwhile, there's still some merriment at Belmont, with Launcelot, Jessica, and Lorenzo enjoying the run of the house. The Duke warns Antonio that Shylock will not be inclined to mercy, and that this hearing is going to be rough. Shylock is called, and the Duke asks him to be merciful. He refuses, saying that he needs no reason other than whim to insist on the pound of flesh. No reasoning with him will work, and Antonio asks for a quick judgment to be rendered. Shylock refuses an offer of double the loan. He tells the court that as Venetians buy slaves and treat them as they like, so he has bought this flesh and may treat it as he likes. The Duke will not render a judgment yet, though. He is waiting on a lawyer from Padua, Bellario. Nerissa enters, dressed as a lawyer. She carries a letter from Bellario, saying that he is unwell and has sent Balthazar, Portia, a young and wise doctor of Rome, in his stead. Meanwhile, and to everyone's horror, Shylock whets a knife on his boot. The Duke welcomes Balthazar, Portia, who insists that she, is familiar with the case. After asserting from Antonio that the bond is valid, she, poetically insists that Shylock should be merciful. Shylock refuses. He insists on the penalty as stipulated in the bond, and refuses any amount of money in compensation. Balthazar, Portia, agrees. Venetian law is binding. but Shylock must foot the bill for a physician to ensure that Antonio does not bleed to death. Oh, he's whipped out a set of scales to weigh his flesh now. Shylock sees nothing in the document holding him liable for that. Balthazar, Portia, stops the impatient Shylock. He may have his pound of flesh, no more. Not one drop of blood. If any blood falls, then the state may confiscate everything he has. Shylock, realizing he's been foiled, would now like to take up the offer of thrice the bond. Balthazar, Portia, says no. The court has already heard that Shylock will not take anything but the penalty. He drops to just asking for the 3,000 ducats. But no, he has already insisted on nothing but the forfeiture. Furthermore, an alien of Venice cannot seek the life of a Venetian, and she, has seen enough to know that this was Shylock's intention. She suggests that Shylock beg the Duke for mercy, which the Duke is happy to give, hoping that Shylock will now show some humility. Shylock will not. Nay, take my life and all. Antonio will also be merciful. He will only take half of Shylock's goods. The rest must go to Lorenzo and Jessica upon Shylock's death. Furthermore, Shylock must become a Christian. Shylock agrees, muttering, "I am content," and leaves the courtroom. Balthazar, Portia, declines a dinner invite from the Duke. She declines an offer of payment from Antonio and Bassiano. They press her, and she asks for Bassiano's gloves and his ring, the ring from Balthazar. Portia. He tries to hang on to it, but with Antonio's insistence, he gives it to Portia. Antonio and Balthazar leave and plan to go to Belmont the next morning. Portia, still in costume, instructs Nerissa to find Shylock's house and have him sign the deed bequeathing everything he has to Lorenzo and Jessica. Gratiano catches up to them and gives Portia, Balthazar, the ring. He, still she, asks Gratiano to show her youth, Nerissa, to Shylock's house. Nerissa promises Portia to try get the ring from Gratiano as well. All in good fun, of course. In Belmont, Jessica and Lorenzo are walking through the garden of Portia's estate, remembering some good times. One of Portia's servants arrives with news that the ladies will be home before dawn. Lorenzo orders that music be played to welcome them, a gesture which is appreciated by the returning party. They order that nobody speak of their absence. At dawn, a trumpet announces the arrival of Antonio, Bassanio, and Gratiano. While happy greetings are exchanged, Nerissa and Gratiano have a fight about his missing ring. Gratiano throws Bassanio under the proverbial bus, causing a fight between himself and Portia. Antonio tries to smooth things over, but to no avail. Antonio pledges his soul as security if only Portia forgives Bassanio. She accepts and gives the ring to Antonio, telling him to give it to Bassanio. He is to tell his friend to look after it better than he did the original ring. Bassanio recognizes it immediately. As Gratiano recognizes the ring Nerissa now gives him. The ladies reveal their trickery, but they also have a gift for Antonio, a letter telling him that 3 of his ships have arrived safely in port. Portia also presents Shylock's deed to Lorenzo and Jessica. Everything and everyone has been restored, and like any good romantic comedy, we end by panning out on the scene as the friends withdraw inside to enjoy their breakfast and hear all about how they did it. At dawn, a trumpet announces the arrival of Antonio, Bassanio, and the other one. This is why you don't form things in bits.